Okay, welcome back everyone to this third part of our morning early session, first session, and we got one more after this, and then we have a long lunch break, 2.5 hours before our second session starts. In this session, we have two speakers, and firstly, I'm delighted to introduce Martin White and to give an invited speak on understanding and solving the complex IIR challenges of searching enterprise content. So before Martin starts, I would like to say, first time I met Martin was in 2014 when I gave a talk at the Enterprise Search Europe conference that Martin organized in London. And so this is many years later, and I'm so delighted to have Martin here to talk at our workshop. Martin has been very active practitioner in academia and business search solutions, and especially an expert in enterprise search. That's why we have Woodall here, you heard, to hear especially for this session. So Martin, the floor is yours.
Ming, thank you very much. And I'm very grateful to the conference for inviting me to take part this morning. It's a real pleasure. And I hope I can encourage you and frighten you. So that's me. And really all you need to know about is the bottom one. I've been working in enterprise search projects for about 20 years, and I've done about 50 or 60 of them in some various industry sectors. And I'm also very proud to be a visiting professor at the University of Sheffield, where I've actually been visiting since 2002. So this is what I want to talk about this morning: why enterprise search is different, the extent to which research is being done, and where the opportunities are for further research. So this is the problem as I see it. On one side, there's IIR, and on the other side, the search, and there's a big crevasse in the middle. And my role, particularly at the University of Sheffield, is to bridge that crevasse. And I'm quite unusual in terms of the search consultant community in having a great interest in what's going on in academia and trying to bring that to the search community. What I'm trying to do today is bring the search community to the IIR community. So just have a quick look at this list, because when we talk about search, we've actually got a number of different searches in mind. So just scan your eye down this list. So that all seems, I'm sure, fairly straightforward. The professional search, and particular systematic search, has really come to a fore over the last couple of years. But there's something I need to point out: highly curated content. In all these 5 areas, you are dealing with people who care about wanting their content to be found. Google has it easy. People pay so much attention to being found on Google. So much of the research is done in these areas where what you do know is the content is in good shape. It's got titles, it's got properly been tagged, everything is wonderful. And then you come to enterprise search, which is a bit different. Let's have a look why. Massive amounts of structured and unstructured content, very little of which is curative quality because there's no incentive to make it findable. When you write a document, you're writing it for your colleagues. And the fact that it's up on a server and a search engine is sweating away trying to find it is of no interest to you at all. And we're dealing with some huge collections here. I mean, most pharmaceutical companies that I work with will have 400 to 500 million files being searched. Another feature of enterprise search is across multiple applications. It is not surprising to find probably 10 or so different applications. Could be an HR application, it could be an enterprise resource planning application, it could be a clinical trials database. You've got text data, you've got a lot of image, digital asset management packages, and you've got video file formats. It's starting to get a bit difficult. and you have multiple points of failure in search. You don't know whether you can't find something because it was never indexed in the first place, because the index is not current and maybe you're looking for something quite recent, or the index hasn't gone back 10 years and you're looking for the start of a drug discovery process. You don't know whether you're putting the query in correctly, and we'll come back to that in a moment, and you've no idea whether the ranking is actually anything like sensible. And you don't know which of these or all of these is causing you not to find content. How do you measure the impact? So much work is done on search evaluation, but actually what's the impact on the organization? It's often at a second level. You take the information, you go into a meeting, you make a decision, which could have a substantial impact on the organization, but it's not directly the search that's having the impact, it's the information that's having an impact. Another challenge in enterprise search is that we're probably not searching for our personal use. We may be part of a team, of a research group, of a project team. And so we may be searching on behalf of others. So having AI trying to work out what my intent is isn't going to work because it doesn't know why I'm searching. It doesn't know. The recent documents may not have been written by me. They may have been written by other members of the team. So we have some very poor guides to search intent, which is, of course, the holy grail of information research, information retrieval research. We're increasingly finding we don't know what's going on inside the black box. We don't know what the personalization is. And we also have multiple levels of security, maybe at part of document level. So when you look at search results, you say, oh, no, what's going on here? I don't understand why those clicks are where they are, because only certain people may be clicking on those terms because they only have access. And of course, they may decide they don't even want those clicks to be shown on the search analytics. Crucially, if you don't find it, the organization and the employee is at risk. All those other searches I've shown you, there are plan Bs. If you can't find it on the Sainsbury's website, you can go to the Tesco website. If you can't find it on PubMed, you can probably find it on Scopus. So there's always an option. If you can't find it inside the enterprise, effectively it doesn't exist. And both the organization and you as a searcher are at risk. Another important point about enterprise search, and I put up here my favorite schematic from Tom Wilson, who was at the Information School Sheffield, indeed is still an emeritus professor, because he talks about information behaviors, what I will call information management, and then seeking behavior, and then search behavior. Search is part of a much bigger whole. And in an organization, you have multiple ways of trying to find information. I've listed some of them on the right-hand side. Many of these are pushed at you by an enterprise search application. So there's a piece of fundamental understanding that enterprise search is additive. It supplements what we already know. So if you go through a ranked list of relevant items on a search engine, on a search page, people may look at the relevant items only to say, yeah, the query is starting to be in the right direction. They don't click on them. You think, why aren't they clicking on the most relevant references? It's simple. They already have them. They are looking for something more, maybe more recent, maybe out to one side. But enterprise search is additive, which makes this whole question of understanding the search behavior even more challenging. Then we've got what I call the Babel dimension. If you just look at the table for a moment, this comes from one of my big pharma clients in Germany. 73% of the content in the enterprise search environment is in English, but only 24% of the employees of the company speak that English as their primary language. So many may be operating even in their third language. And there's a big issue here because no one seems to look at the situation where someone who is German and speaking fluent German and very good English is searching in English. Do they have all the synonyms? If you're German, you've got about 3 or 4 words which all mean sort of working together. In English, we just have collaboration. So there's some big challenges here that no one has looked at, and that's the impact of working in your second or third language on the quality of the search results you get, because the query may not be as well formed as the search engine might like it. And then you've got what I'll call information granularity. Now, this is a public document. You can go away when you get the slides and click on the link. This is the International Development Bank in Washington, and sorry, Inter-American Development Bank. And these are just some of the types of documents that it has. Each one of these documents has different requirements for metadata. It may have a different content element. They could be short documents, they could be 100 pages long, and they could be in English or Spanish or Portuguese, or all three, or any two of the three. So trying to get a particularly high recall search under this situation is extremely difficult. The other one thing you'll see as you look down the left-hand side, lots of acronyms, lots of opportunities for entity extraction. It's a real nightmare trying to get all this information and deliver it to a user. Then you've got what I'll call user granularity. Here's a set of personas for a pharmaceutical company. Each of these personas, and actually this comes from a set of, I think, 12, has a different information requirement. They have different roles to play in their teams. Crucially, they need to look both at internal information and external information. If you're in research and development, you're not just going to look at what's inside. You want to look out to the entire chemical or biochemical literature. So an enterprise search is not just about working internally, it's being able to search external content and integrate it into internal content. So there's a huge systems and content and metadata integration exercise going on here. But it doesn't work. We've been studying search satisfaction since 2007. And I've just shown here that we've got virtually a continuous spectrum of surveys from 2007. But if you look at the one on the bottom left, Intrateam, this comes from a Danish consulting company that actually has communities that it works with. And these communities benchmark themselves against the other 200 or so communities, company communities. So these results are actually very good because the community sense we're going to fill it in correctly. And look, users, only 23% of users are satisfied with their search, and only 3% are very satisfied. What's the point of having a search application in which 10% of people are very dissatisfied with it, and a further third are dissatisfied? Search performance is continuously at a low level. And there's a very interesting piece of work done by Paul Cleverly and Simon Burnett, which basically says there are three pretty equal factors that cause search dissatisfaction. There's the technology itself, and frankly, SharePoint, Office 365, has an appalling level of search in terms of its, if you might call, good practice. Then there's the content issue, and I've been talking about that, poor quality content, not in terms of the content, the information itself, but how it's presented. And then training, because one of the big problems inside the enterprise is that everyone thinks that search should be intuitive. And this is so difficult to overcome. Oh, well, we just want Google. We just want it to be intuitive, as if Google is intuitive. The people who are making these decisions almost always are not doing their own research. So who's doing the research? Well, this is a very short history of enterprise search. And I've written a book on it, and you can track it down on the Internet Focus website. But it started off in 1959. We've been doing enterprise search for a very long time. And from 1950 to about the early 1990s, fundamentally, it was about document-centric research. Cranfield was all about document relevance. And then Google came along, and of course Alta Vista and others. But from the mid-1990s onwards, it was all about searching web content. The reds on here are just to show you how old some of this technology is. So although enterprise search has developed, particularly around classic TDF-IF and BM25 and vector space and stuff like this, all the research has switched to the web as though enterprise search is not the slightest bit important. And you can see this if you've got the research community. This is taken off Google Scholar. On the left-hand side, you can see my good friend, Paul Cleverly. Paul has written some absolutely first-class research reports on enterprise search at the organization he works for. But he's only done it on the organization he works for. If you look at the right-hand side, these are the only other researchers that have put enterprise search in their profile. And when you look at them, you'll find none of them are actually doing enterprise search in the scale we are talking about. Very few have done recent work. Go back to looking at Paul Cleverly. If you look to the left of the years, you find the number of citations. Look how few other people are citing his work, even though it's the only work of its type in the world. There are probably 20 or 30,000 enterprise search applications outside of Microsoft. And yet only in case of Paul do we have any research evidence from a single company. So the other 19,999 we know nothing about. So what are the opportunities and challenges? Over the next two slides, I'm just going to list out, and I'm not going to go through them, just some of the research opportunities I see in enterprise search. And this is just a brain dump. Just for fun the other day, I came up with about 50, but you haven't got time to read through all the slides because no research has been done in enterprise search at all. There are little bits of work on, particularly on the use of engineers, of search by engineers in particular. Professional search has been looked at well by Tony Russell-Rose, John Chamberlain, and Lee Hassapadi. But apart from that, nothing. And more, but I don't want to dwell on that because there are some challenges. The first one is confidentiality. When you go and listen to a search conference, you very rarely see search live because the companies are terrified that you're going to look at it and make two discoveries. A, that there's some very interesting work they're doing, and B, their search is rubbish. So they don't ever show you it live. Some of the others are worth thinking about. If you're going to do research on a PhD timescale, it's going to be 3-4 years before the evidence is collected and republished. You can guess already from what I'm talking about, the test collections and user cohorts are almost impossible to define. You need to do them along persona lines, by country lines, by language lines. Search changes on a very regular basis. It is tweaked. I've talked about security management. You in the middle of your PhD in the middle of your PhD research, a company buys another company. And then all of a sudden you've got a whole new document collection. Microsoft, interestingly, doesn't do any research on enterprise search. You've got from the vendor side, from the company side, sorry, what's in it for us? And then where do you publish? And who do you get to peer review the papers? There are very few of us around who have an understanding of search and of research to do peer review. Maybe it's why I've been on the editorial board of the International Journal of Information Management since 1998. And all I do is look at enterprise search papers, and I might get 1 or 2 a year, if that. Why bother? This is the final slide, really. Enterprise search is a business critical decision support application. Probably 200 million employees around the world use them. If they don't work well, they will make the wrong decisions. So there are huge opportunities in optimizing the search experience. And yet there are very few enterprise search managers. If you're a capable enterprise search manager in law or pharmaceuticals, you're on a 6-figure salary. and you do not move because your company will make sure you stay with them. There are huge opportunities, and yet because no research is done in the community, the information schools don't teach about it, and you've got a vicious circle. There are about 70 vendors of the software. They're desperate for people to come and work with them. And yes, they can find people with AI expertise, but they can't find people with business expertise and information retrieval expertise. And there are many search integration companies in the same position. So overall, the opportunities are not only enormous, they're absolutely essential, because we are years away from where we are with web search in terms of the amount of detail we have about how people search and share and use these applications. So I really would encourage you, if you're a teacher in a university, get your students to start thinking about doing enterprise search. And I'll leave you with the thought that about 3 years ago, there was the third of the Lawn conferences that Microsoft organized in Australia, looking at opportunities in information retrieval. And you know, enterprise search was not even on the agenda. So at that point, I shall stop, and time for reflection if you've got any queries. The lady at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen is my wife, and she's saying, if he stops once more to take a picture of his slideshows, I'm going to divorce him. But bless her, she's still in the house. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope I've just jolted you a little bit this morning and given you a sense of the opportunities.